Hey, Derek.
Hey, Danny. What's
How's it
going
going?
on?
Just
Uh,
hanging in there. How are you?
well, all right. All right. We're waiting for Jasper here. He'll be along
Presumably,
presently, I
Jasper will
assume.
eventually come. I will
Yes.
text him. Hey, Jasper, enter when you have the chance. What's up, man? Oh my God, my flying experience yesterday
Uh,
was absolutely terrible, dude.
yeah,
We
Danny is jet lagged, so everybody should
Sean
be aware of that.
Duffy, real world Boston star, 1997. I do not trust you as much as I do friend of the pod, Pete Buttigieg. I was told I should change my flight, so I changed my flight, and then the flight that I changed my flight to was canceled. I was rebooked
Ah,
for a 7:30 in the morning flight. I didn't tell you guys, so I missed the recording. Did
fascinating.
you? I didn't even ask. Did you record with Ames?
Yeah.
You did the episode. Okay, good, 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 good.
Yeah.
So I
It'll be out on
totally,
Monday.
totally missed an episode. Good. That'll be our free episode. Oh, is that free?
No, I think
Oh,
that's going to
Monday,
be the
Mondays,
bonus.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. Mondays, yeah. No, we make you pay for Mark Ames.
Yeah, Mark is a cash
Yeah,
cow for us. So.
he's a cash cow. So I'm absolutely exhausted. I got in at 10 p.m. East Coast time. In the center of world culture, Long Island for the time being. But yeah, I'm a little zonked. So we thought we'd do a light
Nice.
episode. We're talking with Jasper about the
Nice.
West Bank.
Yeah, talking to Jasper about the West Bank should be
Oh,
should be all
Jesus
fun and games.
Christ. Does it ever end? Does it ever end? Uh, Man, I felt like I had something to say. Oh yeah, no, I finished my first Substack post draft. I think I'm going to launch with 4, which should be good.
Okay.
4 posts, all free for the people
You
out
should
there.
go free for you should go totally free for a little while and then you can
Yeah,
move to
how
pay for a
long?
while.
Because I was talking to my friends over at Substack, and apparently it's like
Depends
not
on how
because you don't
it's
want
not
to you
what.
don't want people to get used to paying for not paying, basically.
Right.
So,
So
yeah,
I mean it depends on how frequently you're publishing. Like
I'm gonna
if you're
do
going to
2 a
publish
week, probably 1 free, 1 paid.
so I mean I do like maybe 2 weeks of all free and then
Yeah, I think
bring
something
bring
like
it
that.
down. Yeah.
And we're also gonna launch with 4. Um, Courtney says, my son is watching, and he says, "Go, Dad." I don't believe her.
Nice.
But yeah, so yeah, 2 weeks, right? Something like that. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, give people like 6, so they get a sense of it. Also, Imperialist Realism is out in a few days. So, I mean, if you're coming to live streams, I think you
Are
should buy
you
Imperialist Realism.
is there going to be any to give people a sense of what's going on? Is there going to be anything that distinguishes the paid posts from the free posts?
The paid post will be
Like
better. No, I don't know.
okay,
I'm actually
yeah,
working. I'm working with a friend of mine, Mark Sussman, who I think I told you and Jake this, but he works for the Glenn Lowry podcast. But
right.
like, we're doing this really as a collaboration. I'm going to be writing. He's going to be editing and fact checking. But yeah, I mean, I think I really do plan every post to be high quality. Like, one of the reasons that we're
Yeah,
going to
no,
do.
I don't mean differences in quality, but maybe there's a theme
No, I
to
think I think it's
any
gonna.
other
So,
like a regular feature. Hey, Jasper.
hey,
Hey, what's up,
Jasper.
guys?
Sorry,
Uh,
we'll get to the West Bank in a second. We're talking about Danny's
we're talking
newsletter,
about something more
far
important,
more
which is how I
critical
how I can
issue.
make
Yeah,
money.
far more important.
Hold
Okay,
on, I have to
good.
say
Yeah.
hi to. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jasper. I have to say hi to my family. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Leo. They're watching for the first time.
That's
You were
fascinating.
talking.
Hi, Courtney and
Nobody in
Leo.
my family ever watches these things.
No,
But
good.
hi, Courtney. Hi, Leo.
So,
This is gonna be a
Jasper,
really this is gonna be a really good one for them. They're gonna love.
Yeah,
they're
it's
gonna love
good
this
one for the
is
kids.
going to be really
Yeah.
uplifting. I'm
Yeah.
super fucking jet lagged, man. So jet lagged that I just screwed us in the algorithm. But I'm launching a Substack soon. So we're
Well, you
talking
just
about.
became my competition, Danny. So
That's
this will be our
right.
last. This will be our last
Yeah,
positive
that's right. This
interaction.
is the last time Jasper's going to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's room. I think mine's going to be be a bit a little more fun.
Okay. Good.
So yeah, Jasper, you are booked
More
on
fun
me.
than the travel logs of the West Bank. That's
Yeah, yeah.
If you start doing travel logs from the West Bank on your Substack, Then
I
we got
mean,
bombed.
there are two
Yeah,
Jewish
then
guys
there's
from
gonna
New
be
York,
some,
like in the
yeah.
West Bank, running
There's gonna
around.
be some
That'd be
problems.
so,
Yeah, we're gonna have to
that'll
have
be
a
so
throwdown.
funny.
I hate to tell you, Danny, but there's a lot more than 2 Jewish guys in New York from New York running around the West Bank. There are thousands and thousands of them,
I
actually.
was gonna say reverse Baruch Goldstein type situation over here. Do you get that cut right?
Baruch Goldstein?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. I'm not sure
As,
everyone gets that one.
worshipped by half of the Knesset.
I know, it's fucking insane. But yeah, so before we get into the uplifting part of the live stream, any Substack tips from a soon to be fellow Substacker? We're also going to be Substackers now.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to actually give people something that they want to read. I think is the main thing.
Wow, Jasper, that's incredible advice.
Well, listen.
Are you a consultant?
No. It is like a question you have to ask yourself is is this something I want to write, or is this something people want to read? Because I think if you peruse Substack, you see a lot of people just writing stuff because clearly it's stuff they want to write or they want to say, and that's fine. But if you're trying to do it to build an audience, then you got to be feeding people information, which is what I try to do. But yeah, not exactly groundbreaking stuff there. But again, you're my competition. Why would I be giving you?
You got it. That's true. Yeah. Why are you giving him advice?
Only give me bad advice. I've noticed a lot of people start Substacks and then they fade off. I mean, there's that funny podcast, I'm sure you guys know it, E1, where I think that the bit is each episode is the first.
There's a lot of those
podcasts.
You can find online newsletters like that.
Yeah, no, lots of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Substackers have a very exciting first post and then
never post again.
If it doesn't catch on, or if you're expecting a return quicker than you're likely to get, then
or you're I said everything I have to say, and I have nothing left now.
That was it. I shot my wad on this one.
Yeah, I wasn't going to use the metaphor, but yes, that's the
one.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to contend with. I mean, you especially starting it now will have to contend with the oversaturation of newsletters and Substack in particular. So you're gonna have to deal with that. But it's a question of perseverance. If you're not raking in the big bucks right away, keep at it, and hopefully you'll hit a point where it'll start to pay off.
With the podcast, I would say it took us about a year before we started making real money, right? About a year. No, actually, till the Ukraine war. We launched in summer 21, and that was a big explosion. I think that was the big thing.
It certainly was a big explosion.
Yeah.
And exactly how much money is your podcast making?
I don't know. That's all.
Yeah, we don't.
That's all.
The money just shows up in my bank account.
I always thought a terrible idea because I mean, let's be honest here, we're all war profiteers. I always thought a terrible idea would be to do a wag the dog where a podcaster starts a war in order to get more podcast subscriptions.
People accuse me of that all the time. They're like, how is it that you keep getting attacked in the West Bank? And then all these people are viewing your videos. And I'm like, I just show up. That's all you got to do.
I mean, this stuff goes on all the time. It's not they're all rallying to Jasper's in town. Let's go get him.
No.
This stuff happens all the time.
I mean, this is one of the. I mean, I should probably write a post about this. I mean, this is one of the ironies, of course, of being an empire. I mean, Jasper, you do something different. You put your body on the line in a real way that Derek and I don't. But I mean, when you do this type of work from the sort of belly of the beast, there's always that hypocrisy, or at least at the very least tension there, where you are making money off of the crimes of this empire that you're sitting in the heart of. So I mean, it is something.
I feel it too. I feel it too. I mean, I go out there and I, put myself right in the middle of it, but I can leave.
Right.
The people I'm reporting on can't leave. They have nowhere else to go, famously. So, yeah, I feel that too, for sure.
Yeah, what's that old? I forget where the quote originates from, probably from different sources, but it's Americans come, they destroy our country, and 30 years later make movies about how it made them feel bad, and that's a lot of the American empire sort of shtick. But let's turn to the subject at hand: looks maxing. So Jasper, what hammer do you?
Obviously, this is why we had you on.
a jackhammer, actually. Yeah.
Oh, you use a jackhammer.
Yeah.
Oh, you just got it. Those are all fake teeth. You just
nothing about it's all just heavy machinery in my apartment here.
You use a vise like in casino. I mean, there's so many different places to start here. So why don't we start actually with the most recent trip? But I also would like to talk to you a little bit about, Israeli politics. You just mentioned the Knesset, and I think that's something we don't talk enough about on this show. But let's start with the West Bank. So.
Maybe we should start with the most recent incident, which, Jasper, you weren't there for, but I think you can give people some context for, which is this incident in the village of Tal near Nablus. Basically a group of Israeli hikers, and I guess that's a euphemism, but they showed up in the village armed to the teeth, as one does when one goes for a hike. You bring semi-automatic weapons, and caused a ruckus. The IDF showed up, as it does, and then started harassing the Palestinians, of course, because they had the temerity to be living there when these Israelis showed up, the settlers showed up. And in the course of what was going on, a Palestinian got a hold of, I think, one of the settlers' weapons. Like the details on this were not 100% clear to me, and killed one of the settlers, killed maybe a soldier. A number of Palestinians were killed, and then that led to this security crackdown, which has been going on basically since then, with the IDF going into towns and villages and just harassing people. So first of all, like you've experienced this, the hiking phenomenon, or the phenomenon, I guess, more broadly, where you're a Palestinian living your life in your village, and one day a group of settlers just shows up.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Well, if you listen to the settlers in their own words, their leaders, there's a guy named Elisha Yared, who is a very well-known settler activist. He used to actually work. He was a spokesperson in the Knesset. He probably murdered a Palestinian teenager a couple years ago, but did no jail time. That's alleged. And he very famously likes to talk. And he says very openly that, what they're doing when they go on these hikes is they are initiating friction. They, are deliberately going into places where they know there will be Palestinians because they're Palestinian villages, often in areas A and B, where Israelis are actually not even legally allowed to be under Israeli law. In the case of Tel, that was, I think it's in both area A and B. And they're going there to do provocations and to try to get some sort of a response that will then justify, the use of, or that will, give them a sort of plausible justification for the use of both their own force, but also to then get the military to come in and use force. And I mean, it's so clearly they've been telegraphing this forever. So if you actually go and read this document called the Decisive Plan that Smotrich wrote in, I think, 2015 or maybe 2017, about a decade ago. I mean, he is talking about, this is before he was in government. He was an activist, basically. He says, the goal is to take over the entire West Bank. We will leave the Palestinians with three options. Option one is they basically become, colonial subjects and like pledge their loyalty to the state of Israel. Option two is we pay them and they leave. And option three is we fight to the death. And they are basically counting on option three, which is, a holy war of sorts. And so they are, these settlers are constantly agitating and trying to provoke a war. They want nothing more. I don't think that this guy went out, planning on getting shot dead by his own gun. But the plan when they went into the village of Tel was to have a confrontation with Palestinians, which they knew would happen. By the way, this community, they've been attacking it for years. Like, I think a week or two before, a home was burned down there. So like a bunch of settlers show up with machine guns. Obviously, Palestinians are going to come out. I think what made this situation a little unique was that the Palestinians there were defending themselves more aggressively than, sometimes they do. And, they paid the price for it because as you said, Derek, a Palestinian, a sheik, actually wrestled a gun away from a settler. That settler then reached for a handgun and was holding a handgun when Farouk Ramadan, the sheik, shot him dead. And then an Israeli soldier was killed at some point, and Israeli officials, it leaked, believe it was actually friendly fire. So it's likely not the Palestinian who killed him. But then what happens after is that there's video that shows the Farouk Ramadan, the man who shot the settler. He puts the gun down and he starts walking slowly towards the soldiers and settlers. He's clearly surrendering. And you hear in the background of a video a settler shouting at a soldier, shoot him, shoot him. And he does. He executes him. And then 3 other Palestinians who are all cousins of that guy are on the ground, on their knees, unarmed, and they are all shot one at a time, just summarily executed. The across the political spectrum in Israel, the response was a severe terror attack just occurred in the village of Tel, and a massive military response is now required. Interestingly, you started saying you want to talk about Israeli politics. This has now actually become a sort of big issue in Israeli politics because there have been some people, on the ostensible Israeli left, and we can talk about this, like what it actually means to be on the Israeli left, who don't like the settlers. This is not to say they like the Palestinians or they want the Palestinians to live free, but they don't like the settlers. And they actually took issue with, like, Yair Golan, for example, who is one of these ostensible left-wing guys, calling it a terror attack. And so, but in any case, there was a consensus among the Israeli government and military that this required a massive military response, which is exactly what happened. There were raids in countless villages across the West Bank. The settlers then are immediately calling for revenge. You can go back decades, and if you can find videos of funerals of settlers who were killed by Palestinians, they're like Klan rallies. It's people shouting to murder the Arabs and, calling for revenge. And now what you hear at these funerals is them cursing the Oslo Accords, cursing areas A, B, and C, and vowing that they are going to erase those lines. And so they're now, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, but I just want to pause on this a second because we have done updates on Israeli politics now and then, but I think it's worth taking a step back. It's funny now being in New York. There's not that many Jews in Seattle, so you don't talk about it that much. But in New York, already just a couple of days, you hear a lot of like, I really hate Netanyahu. Like he is sort of putting that blame on him. But then you read the polls, and the polls are overwhelmingly in favor of Gaza. They're overwhelmingly in favor of annexation of the West Bank. So how should we understand the Israeli, a little jet lag, the Israeli political spectrum? Is it basically all in favor of this sort of annexation, all in favor of this roughly defined Greater Israel project, and for different people it would end at different parts, Ha'am, Im, Hagolan, as they used to say. Where are we with that?
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you asked, because this is something that gets completely lost in the discourse, even like the, like intellectual discourse on some level here. So, I would say there's no meaningful political bloc in Israel that wants to like end the occupation. There are there's Ofer Kasef and a couple others, the Hadash party, who are sort of openly, want to end the occupation, but they have, there's no real coalition there. So what you have instead is basically you have the real right wingers, which is, Netanyahu, obviously the Likud party, but more to the right is, Jewish Power, which is Ben Gvir's party, and Religious Zionism, which is Smotrich's party. And what these people want is for the settlers to, I should say less so Netanyahu, he's kind of in the middle, but what the far right parties want is for the settlers to have full control of the situation in the West Bank. And that means that the boundaries, areas A, B, and C that, are supposed to determine where you can go build a settlement are meaningless. And they should be allowed to go and build wherever they want. That is actually, there's then I think what you might call like center left, which is probably where you would put Eisenkot, who is the leading opposition candidate right now, and perhaps Yair Golan as well, who would probably be his defense minister. These guys, well, let me put Eisenkot aside for a minute because he's a little different. But in general, the center left, they don't like the settlers, actually. They think the settlers are causing them problems. They don't like seeing the videos. They understand that when, these like mutant looking creatures come out of the hills and burn down villages and act like barbarians, it's not a good look for Israel. And they think that it's causing them problems. But what they want is for the military to remain in charge. The military occupation, which has been going on since 1967 and is incredibly brutal and rules with an iron fist. But it's important to distinguish between the military occupation and the settlement movement, which are two different institutions that certainly have overlap, and increasingly I would say there's political and ideological overlap. But as institutions, the military occupation is maintaining order or security, and the settlers a lot of the time want insecurity. They want to cause explosions.
Jasper, just very quick clarification on that, Derek. But the military occupation would just essentially be like a slow moving then settler colonial process.
I mean, in practice, yes, but in theory, it could
last forever,
indefinite. But it
camps forever.
So, yes, but but this is why going back decades, the military will fight with the settlers. Sometimes they will go out and dismantle outposts, and then you see these videos of settlers throwing temper tantrums. This is what happened in Gaza in 2005 when they disengaged from the handful of settlements in the north. Is the settlers literally put yellow Star of David pins on their shirts and acted like they were being put in fucking boxcars to Dachau. It was they were fighting with the military over it. Today, the military is much more the rank and file military is much more just fully aligned with the
this is what I was gonna ask about. It feels like this line has become much blurrier, and you have greater, even moving now into the upper ranks of the military. You have settler, people who come out of the settler movement occupying these positions, and increasingly you hear, instead of there's still a cadre of senior officers who talk about the settlers being, or at least the bad actors. And this is another thing that we're supposed to believe. It's just 15 juvenile delinquents. This was Netanyahu's line, a couple of months ago, that are really causing the problems, and everybody else is law abiding. But in general, the idea that the settlers are a source of insecurity, or that they make the IDF's job harder managing the occupation, has become supplanted by the idea that these outposts and the farms that then turn into the settlements are actually they're a feature of Israeli national security. They help the IDF do its job. And increasingly that seems to be the rhetoric. So these things are merging, I think, in a way.
And it's not just rhetoric. I mean, there's these military units called Hagmar, which are just literally settlers who've been given guns and military outfits, and they act like soldiers. And it's a lot of the time you don't know if you're dealing with an actual soldier or one of these cosplaying soldiers. And the settler soldiers, the Hagmar, are much more dangerous, actually, because they are complete fucking lunatic. They are messianic. I'm not saying the soldiers can't be lunatics or can't be brutal, but again, it's the difference between this sort of messianism, this ideological drive. And in the West Bank, you're constantly, if you're going into communities that are experiencing friction, to use the settler euphemism, you're constantly dealing with IDF soldiers, because they're coming in, and you get a mix of them. I mean, most of the time they come in and they do absolutely nothing. Some of the time they come in and they are openly fighting on the side of the settlers and defending the settlers. And every once in a while you see a couple of guys and you can see they're this bullshit again. I got to deal with these fucking punks again. And they, listen, they're not doing anything to help the Palestinians, but you can see just the way they look at the settlers. And when you talk to them, they're these guys are so goddamn annoying. And so just back to the question about Israeli politics, the left wing of, Israeli politics today, again, not the left fringe, but the the left wing that has any sort of power wants, I think it's fair to say, wants to return to a sort of status quo of military occupation, where the settlers are not able to just march into villages and areas A and B and cause these problems, and settlements can still be expanded, but it has to go through the law. And by the way, the law has been completely transformed in the last couple of years by Smotrich in ways that are going to be completely almost impossible to reverse. So they basically want to continue settling the West Bank through, within Israeli law. It's still illegal under international law, of course, but within Israeli law. And then you have the guys like the Smotriches and the Ben-Gvir who think the settlers should be able to do anything they want. And, they want them to have control and to be able to annex the West Bank. But there like even Eisenkot, who I actually have not read it yet, but Remnick just profiled him in the New Yorker, or he wrote something about him. But
he's the new great centrist hope. Right.
Exactly. And
in the US, yeah.
There's one of these every few years.
And this is a guy that came up with the doctrine like 20 years ago. The Israeli
doctrine, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which literally says like use disproportionate force against civilian infrastructure to bring them to their knees, which is like collective punishment, obviously. But this guy Eisenkot is he is positioning himself as a sort of left of center. I think he lost either 2 sons or 1 son and 2 nephews, like in the various wars since October 7th. So he's like, very sympathetic to the Israeli people. A couple months ago, this guy went out and visited an infamously violent outpost and like broke bread with the settler leaders there and was clearly signaling to them that if I take charge, don't worry, like you're going to be fine. You're going to still have my back, or I'm going to still have your back. And I think it is fair to say, like, I don't want to, another one of these things that gets flattened in the discourse is like, there's no difference between any of them. There are differences. I think that, like, for example, Yair Golan, who I think is genocidal, basically, if he becomes a minister of defense, I think that the settlers will get less direct support. They will not be, shipping them weapons and, working with them at the highest levels to help them map out which areas to take. I don't think it's going to stop the settler movement. I don't think he's going to do what is actually necessary, which is to use massive military force to, beat the settlers back. But I don't think they will have as much like just explicit, open financial, defensive, strategic, even rhetorical support if the government changes over. And frankly, like, Palestinians across the West Bank, a lot of them that I talk to are counting on that, or I should say they're hoping for it, just so that things might get a little bit better, because they are like just living in such terror and, suffering right now that they're hoping for it. But I have not talked to a single Palestinian who thinks that like there's anything within the Israeli political system that could, free them from the occupation.
There's an ongoing case study here, and what happens to these guys who emerge as the great hope of the center, or the 2-state people in the U.S. Like, every once in a while you get one of these ephemeral challengers to Netanyahu. Yair Lapid was one a few years ago, and really, like, I think started to catch on among a certain segment of liberal Zionist 2-state folks in the US as like, he's really attractive to us. He's a businessman. So he's like, right, got some business sensibilities. He's not as extreme as Netanyahu. He's now basically an afterthought in Israeli politics, but he's also become a biblical borders guy. Like, this is what happens to these folks. I don't know if they get beaten up by the political structure or what, but there's no appetite for like a long-term policy of settling this conflict in a way that would have any benefit to the Palestinians.
No, I mean, not a single one of them
moving further right.
Yeah. Not a single major candidate supports the creation of a Palestinian state. So like, there's that, which I'm constantly just like listening to the things that liberal Zionist politicians in America are saying about their hopes for Israel. And I'm just thinking, like, who are your partners in this? Like, what country are you talking about? Man. You are literally, it's in your imagination.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times there's been like a talk on campus where they're talking about the 2-state solution. It's like absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I mean, the way that I view it, just in you know, one person's cynicism is another person's realism. So I just think this realistic. They're just running out the clock, basically. Yeah. And my sense, and I'm curious what you see on the ground. My sense is that since the annihilation of Gaza, now it's just there's like an idea of like, let's just get it done. Like, this is not going to get any better, and we need to basically just fully affirm domination for whomever comes in 2028, whether even if it's basically anyone but Marco Rubio is going to have a difficult time doing the special relationship indefinitely going forward. Is that a correct, you know, is my vibe reading correct, or is there something more going on there?
Let's get them done. Let's get this done, as in that's what like they're thinking in Israel.
Yes, like that's
no, absolutely.
And in America, what they're kind of doing, I think they're not thinking it maybe as consciously, but it's kind of like run out the clock.
Totally. I mean, listen, like there's just nobody who's actually paying close attention to what's happening can say with any sort of seriousness that a two-state solution is a viable option anymore. I mean, like I said this on Chapo a few weeks ago, so apologize for double dipping, but like
podcast Chapo.
Is that we're not familiar.
Is that popular?
I was just on there a couple of weeks ago too, so let's let them up.
Tiny podcast
up here,
little podcast called Chapo Trap House.
Small, you know, niche.
I mean, I was recounting a conversation I had with Rokana, where you know he had. Oh man, you know, I'm sure most of your audience is like, you know, saw he was in the West Bank. He saw some fucked up shit. I mean, some shit happened to him. Like it's all real. I know it happened. He comes home and he basically just starts like reciting, you know, the liberal Zionist bromides, which was like
two-state dogma. Like, how can you go through that experience and come back and that's still your answer to these questions?
So the thing that I said to him when I talked to him after, and he was talking about a two-state solution, was I was like, you saw the situation in the West Bank, which is that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of settlers, you know, probably more than 750,000 between East Jerusalem and the West Bank. They have so many fucking guns, and they have the entire military behind them, and they have the entire Israeli government behind them. And so my question is, to build this Palestinian state, like, what's your plan for going to war with Israel? Because to actually like create the territory that would be required to have an actual Palestinian state in anything other than just name, like you would need to clear hundreds of thousands of settlers out of the land. Even if you like left a lot of them in like the bigger settlements along the Green Line, you still have hundreds of thousands of settlers that need to be pushed out. They have the military behind them, they have guns, and they have the government behind them. So you're fighting a war against Israel. And so to me, it's like, if you want to continue talking about a two-state solution, that's fine, but you need to, you know, share like, what's your plan for going to war with our special ally? Yeah. Because there's just no other scenario where you get a Palestinian state created there. And so, and like, just to get back to your question, Danny, I mean, I can say certainly the settlers, feel that like this is their moment. They have to make a mad dash, both because of like the ticking clock on the Netanyahu government potentially, but also because, I mean, they have a president in Trump who is just, you know, he doesn't even know where the West Bank is. But I just don't know anybody who like sees any.
But he knows they put his name on a community in the Golan, so I mean he's happy about that.
Yes, he does know about that, and he But I mean I bet any amount of money he does not know what river bank the West Bank refers to. I bet any amount of money on that. But anyway,
maybe he thinks it refers to a bank. Like there's a big bank.
Well, I can guarantee if you showed him a map, he would point to the west. But anyway, like there's just no. I think everybody's trying to run out the clock, and the Palestinians there are you know, trying to survive, while people in America are like acting as if they can build a state. And the Palestinians are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like Israel has cut us off from our money and our fuel and our food. Like we can barely live here anymore.
Well,
and
it's very complicated, Jasper. You know, like there are some naive people think that you should give people human rights, but you know, it's very complicated. You know, I mean, it's just the most cynical thing. But at this point, it just seems like what they're doing. And like you said, in 2028, even should, you know, Comrade AOC become president, I don't think she's going to go to war with Israel. You know, I mean, you could see the cutting off of weapons, perhaps, but I don't even really know. So it just seems like all roads lead to grim from this situation on out. I truly don't see how they don't. But am I missing something?
No, I think it's like the most the easiest thing to imagine happening is just more of this, and it gets worse, and then it gets a little better, and then it gets worse. But the what's happening is the Palestinians are getting pushed from their land. I think for the most part, they're in the West Bank. They're getting pushed into the cities, and so like the sort of like I think temporary plan that Smotrich has is like push the Palestinians. Like for example, Nablus is a big city in the north. And there's all these villages around it, including Tel, including Sebastio, including Burqa, including Masudia. And like they want to clear out all of those villages.
Right.
And
this
push
is like
all those
stage
people,
one of the displacement is to
exactly push them all into the city. They
city.
get all the land around them. Now they're like encircled. And then I think from there that, now it's easier to just bomb them all at once, I guess. But yeah,
well, you can bomb them all at once, or you can, barrage them with, we'll pay you, $1,000 to go someplace else.
And that's happening, by the way.
Whatever program you want.
They passed a law, or maybe it was an executive decision earlier this year, that makes it much easier for Israelis to buy Palestinian land in the West Bank, and so they have created a system where they can buy them off of their land. Yeah. So anyway, it's a grinding ethnic cleansing that right now is happening at sort of higher speed than it was, but it's been going on for years. I think it'll get worse. It'll get a little better at some point, and it'll get worse again. And it feels a little bit like Gaza in that it's just like so hard to imagine like what could happen that starts to move things in the right direction for the Palestinians there. I just don't know. I mean, they're not living in the same sort of squalor, obviously, as they are in Gaza. But in terms of like just the outlook, I don't have any reason to feel optimism, unfortunately. And I this is what I hear from my Palestinian friends too.
Has there been talk of like just American style reservations that you just push all the population onto, usually in Seattle, there's 3 big reservations. They've basically been there since the late 1850s, Puget Sound War, and they're going to be there from now until.
I don't think they can stop with that, though. I think you push people onto like the Nablus reservation, but eventually they want Nablus too. Like you push people into the Jenin reservation, but you want
America's
Jenin
big enough.
eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, they want Lebanon, they want Syria, they want
they want.
they want it all.
Right. There's settler groups in Syria at this point, like people crossing over and. I think I read the article about that Syria excursion was fascinating because the lead, I can't remember where it was, in Reuters or something, but the lead was like the Israeli soldiers monitoring the southern Syria were ready to open fire on this group of young men who were they saw at night coming across the border, until they noticed that oh wait, these are Israelis, we're not supposed to open fire on them, and they were just basically like wandering around picking out plots of land for the settlements.
Totally. This is something you always see in the West Bank, is like a settler, a group of settlers going on to like some farmland as part of a community. They just show up, they have measuring tools, they have an iPad, they have a compass, and they're scouting. They're thinking like, what plot are we going to take? And like, it's not random. They've worked with the government and with the IDF to strategically map out the West Bank, to seize land that will cut off Palestinians from being able to go from one village to another. Actually, today I read a story that it just leaked, I think, that the IDF is seizing land in Area A, which again is supposed to be fully under Palestinian Authority control. They're seizing land in Area A to connect 2 new settlements. And what that obviously does is when you connect 2 settlements is you cut off the Palestinians who are on either side of it. And so they're just they're squeezing them into smaller and smaller little Bantustans and just making their lives miserable. And it was eventually like a lot of them may want to leave. So it's death by a million cuts. It's there's the violence. Then you go to the north, the refugee camps, Jenin, Tulkarm. I mean, they've been turned into Gaza. These places look like the Jenin refugee camp looks like Rafah.
It's the same idea that you want to create conditions that are so miserable that people will leave, and they'll leave, and you can slap a label on that, like freedom of movement or voluntary migration or whatever euphemism the Israeli government wants to use at any given time, and say, look, we're not ethnically cleansing people. They just wanted to leave, and they're free to go. Like, why would we stop them? Why would we interfere with that? But
in
reality,
we're buying their land. Like, they're getting money from.
Yeah,
just one more thing.
Price,
One more thing on this. I mean, Danny, maybe you should like do the research on this because you know economics a lot better than me. But like, there's a fuel crisis exploding in the West Bank right now that is caused in part by the fact that the Palestinians in the West Bank are dependent on the shekel. They don't have their own currency, and the Israeli banks put a limit on how much money they can transfer. So there's a cash crisis in the West Bank. My understanding is there's not actual fuel shortages. There's an issue with the cash required to actually buy the fuel. And so right now in the West Bank, my friends are sending me pictures. It's like one of those apocalyptic scenes with people and cars lined up for miles and miles and miles to fill up a can of gas. So, and like, this is the kind of thing that never makes it into the news, but it is absolutely part of the plan. It's like, if we give them a fuel shortage, if we, cut them off from being able to get to their jobs over here, if we, do this and that, like, it's just their life gets more and more miserable. And eventually maybe you leave or you start a third intifada and, the settlers get their holy war.
Yeah, which is precisely what they wanted. And one thing I wanted to, what is the state of Palestinian politics at this point?
Oh, I mean, it's like, how do you build a political movement when you are living, under a just absolutely suffocating occupation? I mean, obviously the Palestinian Authority, governs the West Bank. Mahmoud Abbas is approximately like 300 years old at this point. He's corrupt. He's, a collaborationist. I actually do know one person who likes him, but that's just a funny story. Like, I don't know anybody who supports the PA, or the Fatah party who's in control now. You meet people who, support Hamas. You meet people who are communists. You meet all different types of people, but there's just no organizing, meaningful organizing that can happen when people are struggling to survive. And that's by design. I mean, obviously, like, part of the reason Israel was propping up Hamas in Gaza is because they didn't want the Palestinian Authority to be able to like consolidate power across Gaza and the West Bank. Like I mean, it's a story as old as a tale as old as time, of like wanting to splinter the opposition, but there has not been any promising, meaningful political movements that I've seen, at least. I mean, there are certainly people who know this stuff better than me, but nothing in the West Bank. That they've sort of have an heir apparent picked for Abbas, and he's just another one of these like technocrats that is rubber stamped by, I think, the U.S. and so nothing promising, basically.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem whenever you talk about this issue. It's important to learn, it's important to witness, but it just seems like it's circling a drain and barring like some radical thing that is almost unimaginable. You would just find yourself like playing witness. Not you when one does this.
No, I do. I certainly find myself doing that. Yeah.
And then so like I think it's a human impulse to eventually come to like, what do you do? And the answer is like, basically there is no answer. So
I think that like, if you're a Palestinian, you have some difficult decisions to make. The guys in Tel, the guy who wrestled the gun from that soldier's hands, I'm sure he knew, I'm going to die doing this. And he decided to go down and take somebody with him, basically. And, like, this is, it right before this happened, I was like, on podcast talking about how excruciating it is to watch the restraint the Palestinians have to show in the face of these attacks, because they know that if they were to fight back, they would probably die, or they would, be thrown in jail, or their village would be burned to the ground. And then you see a perfect example of it where, one guy gets a gun from a settler who's attacking him, kills him, and then him and 3 of his cousins are immediately executed. The village is under siege. Settlers just announced, I'm in one of their Telegram groups. They're going back tomorrow on a hike, a memorial hike. They're going back to Tel, so like could wake up to news of another massacre tomorrow. But I mean, the Palestinians that I know, like, I have not met anybody who's like, we're going to leave. They're going to stay. I think they'll fight with whatever they can, but there's no there's also like the talk of a third intifada is also kind of bullshit in my opinion, because like there's no guns. There's no like the second intifada, the PA basically, like they were a big part of it and they had guns. Like that's just not going to happen now. The resistance groups in the West Bank have basically been cleared out. I don't know what a third intifada would look like. It would look like a lot more of what we just saw in Tel, but in terms of like mass armed resistance, I don't, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see how it could happen.
And sort of building off of that, there's obviously this Saudi deal. Who knows what that's actually going to be, given the various vagaries of the Trump administration. But it does seem to me like, again, besides a rhetorical, that the salience of this issue for many of the Arab states in the region has just steadily decreased, likely because it appears increasingly hopeless. So I'm curious, what is your thought about the regional sense of Palestine?
And I mean, we should probably talk about Gaza too. I mean, this is, I don't want to give Gaza short shrift by, just like throwing it as an afterthought. But I mean, Trump did announce today that they supposedly deal to disarm Hamas, which, I mean, depending on how that's framed, is surrendering the resistance. I mean, this is how Hamas has portrayed that idea. So depending on what the mechanism is for that, this could be another huge blow to any,
Yeah, I mean, well, just starting with Danny's question, like the Palestinians that I know in the West Bank like the Arab states about as much as they like the United States of America. I mean, I think they believe the people are behind them for the most part, but the leaders of the Arab states don't give a shit about what's happening in the West Bank. To the extent they do, it's because they need to appease their people. But and it is in fact like the Arab states who are able to like threaten to pull, or like the UAE like can threaten to pull out of the Abraham Accords, which could then make Trump do something. But I have not met any Palestinians who are counting on the Arab states to rescue them from this. I think they all are much more likely to just normalize relations with Israel. The Gaza thing, I actually just saw that story before we came on. Did Hamas agree to fully disarm?
They haven't said. So there was a story, Haaretz reported this, and there was, I think Reuters did a report on this earlier in the day, that they had made progress with the Board of Peace, another great euphemism, with the Board of Peace on some sort of like sequencing process where they would hand over in stages like heavy weaponry, and then go from there to the like technocrats, this committee that's the board is supposed that exists, hasn't been allowed into Gaza or allowed to do its job by the Israelis, but it does exist, that they would hand the weapons over to that group instead of turning them over to the Israelis. So there's some something, I guess, to be said for that. But that the story that I saw until Trump went on Truth Social, the story that I saw was that the Israelis had already rejected it. Like they had said, no, we want full immediate disarmament. We want all the weapons handed over to us, basically. Like we don't like anything that's in this plan that's coming out. And then Trump just blew through everything. Like the story was they were approaching an agreement, might be a few days, might be longer, and the Israelis were against it. And then here comes Trump with like, there's a deal, it's done. And I don't know if he's like wishful thinking or if he's trying to manifest, if he's trying
I don't think Trump would have posted that on Truth Social and if it wasn't a done deal. I mean, he would.
Oh, well, obviously, yeah. I mean, it's Truth Social. It's a truth. You can take it to the bank.
It's not called
take it to the West Bank.
Lie Social, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what is going on in his head, if anything. I mean, if there's anything ever going on in his head, but that's like that was the last thing I saw.
The fly.
Yeah, or like the hoedown band, like doing their thing. But, so I honestly don't know.
What I can say about that, I mean, obviously, like you guys know as much about Gaza as I do. I've never been there, but I think for starters, you got to ask yourself, like, is it in Netanyahu's interest to actually have Hamas disarm? No. Like he wants forever war there. He doesn't like Trump's Truth Social post was like, finally a government that is for the Palestinian people will form. Like Netanyahu doesn't want that. Right. He wants a group that he can call terror group and that he can just have a constant enemy. The Palestinian people, I don't know. I don't want to speak for the people of Gaza. I think there are probably some people who are just so desperate that they'll take anything. I think there are others who are like, we should never give up our weapons. So I don't know, but I just don't see like Israel. Also, like I did see that the disarmament would include the IDF fully leaving the Strip, which they have like control of like 40% of it now. So I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean that they've been going in the opposite direction. And again, like it's another part of this that was like has not been fleshed out at all. Like in addition to like how long would the disarmament take, how many stages would there be, who exactly would be involved in this. There's this other thing of the IDF's going to withdraw. Well, are they going to withdraw in stages? Are they going to they're supposed to leave all at once? Like what are the details here? And nothing. There's nothing to flesh that out.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, and this is just again, this whole situation just seems like a lot of chaos, and then so that we get to 15 years from now, essentially, and that seems to be just like running out the clock.
When Trump will still be the viceroy of the Board of Peace,
he'll still be on the Board of Peace. That's right.
The weekend that Trump's, goddamn.
I mean, there's a parallel process going on here to what's happening in Israeli politics or what's happening with the two-state solution backers or the settlers just trying to get what they can while the time is ripe. That's totally happening in the U.S., where I think the people who are not delusionally clinging to the two-state solution, who actually have an understanding of how the politics of Israel plays in the United States right now, are racing to cram as much garbage into the system as they can to make it impossible to unwind. That's where you get this Section 219 in the defense bill, effectively saying we're not going to do aid to Israel anymore. We're just going to all be one big happy military, in many respects. And so it will be embedded, and good luck, unwinding that or pulling that apart. I don't know. I mean, we don't want to keep you too much longer, Jasper, but what do you make of the politics of this at a time when you have, AIPAC dumping $50 million into a Senate primary, at a time when you have a lot of people, I think, seeing the writing on the wall, trying to institute or instantiate as much of the U.S.-Israel relationship as they can, so it's impossible for, if there's a generational shift, if there's a political shift, for a future government to pull it apart.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. I think it's like competing interests just all frantically grabbing what they can right now. The military merging thing, to tell you the truth, I actually would like to hear what you guys think about that. Like, I don't quite know where in American, is that just coming from the pro-Israel faction?
I mean,
where's it coming from? Where's it coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how you could do it. Like, it's insane to me. We had Ben Freeman on, I think. Was it Ben Freeman, Danny?
Yeah, Ben from Quincy. Yeah.
To talk about this, and it just, some of the details are absolutely bad.
But who are its biggest advocates? Is it just the big pro-Israel people in like the defense department?
I mean, I think it's been, the big it's one of these things that doesn't seem to have. You got people attacking it, like Bernie Sanders and some other people attacking it and trying to get it out of there. I don't know how it got in there in the first place. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know if anybody's come out and said, like, this is my baby. I really want this to happen. It's just there, and it's supposed to just go through and be, because nobody wants to openly take that position because it's not popular, and you've got a lot of skepticism about it. But yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you like who
so
was
according
the
to the chat,
part of the NDA.
Gillibrand and Don Davis.
Is that real? Gillibrand
started as the Futures Act. This is
I kind of just like it was the story was sort of blowing up while I was in the West Bank, so I didn't really get to follow it. But I mean, look, like I feel like it's exactly what you said. It's sort of, anybody who's paying attention can see right now that Israel is bleeding support in the U.S. Across both parties, and certainly for young people. And I think that there's a lot of people who have a lot of interest in not letting that happen. And then there's a lot of people who are just like, how can we make as much money as we possibly can right now before the party's over? I think that's pretty much like the Trump doctrine, for all things. So I don't read too much into like what Trump is doing on these things. I'm just always like, which Saudi prince does he have a business deal with that he needs to do this for? But yeah, I think that it's a question of like, by the time the massive change in public opinion in the US about Israel, by the time that has manifested into actual policy change, like what's going to be left of Palestine, of Palestinians?
Right. I mean, this is the whole
Right.
thing. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this quote unquote joke. It's going to be the land acknowledgements from the hotel in
Yes,
the city.
exactly.
Right?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
that is clearly where it's going to be. Except the difference is that indigenous genocide in the United States took several centuries. Here it's just you know 60 plus years. As
well, listen, I will say this: like the Ro Khanna thing. Like I was sort of one of the first people to come out and criticize him when he started invoking Gandhi and MLK about Palestinian resistance. However, the guy's taken a beating the last couple of weeks. Like, to his defense, it sort of would have been unimaginable a couple of years ago to think that a major U.S. politician would even be like discussing the idea of Palestinian armed resistance publicly, and then it would not just be considered like terror sympathizing, and it wouldn't just end their career right away. And so the fact that I wouldn't say it's entered mainstream political discourse yet, but it does, I think, like the Overton window, like maybe shifting. And I don't think it's like out of the question that in the next couple of years you could hear more politicians being like, these Palestinians, like in the West Bank at least, shouldn't just be getting murdered with no way to defend themselves. Like, that's not really fair. Because I think they see that most people in the country see it that way. And so I don't want to like, give the impression that I'm optimistic at all, or that I'm anything other than just like jaded and cynical and sad about everything. But undeniably, public opinion and I think even political discourse have changed at like sort of an alarmingly fast rate. And who knows? Like, who knows?
So what does Clavicular think about all of this?
Yeah.
Well, he went to Israel.
He did go to Israel.
They gave him an OpenAI Star of David or something like that. That also
they
happened
gave
while I
him a
was
minder. Like, it was all, it was wonderful.
What was he doing there? Was it like a Hasbro trip?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, he's geomaxing. Have you guys heard about this?
No. What's that?
It's called traveling. He calls it geomaxing.
Geomaxing. Right.
Oh God. Well, that's probably where we should leave it. I'm about to literally pass out.
Yeah, Jasper, we really thank you for doing this. Folks can go
pleasure.
to infinitejazz.com. It's up there on the screen. But
yeah, check out the Substack.
We'll have a link.
Even though
check out Substack and
it's competition. I'm magnanimous. May the best man, we're the best Jew from New York win. As I always.
Maybe you guys could do like a discount, mutual discount thing or something, and
maybe get a couple get a couple of your own followers and then call me Danny and we can.
Okay, all right.
Let's do a public arm wrestling.
Subscriber mogging you, Danny. Is that the right? Did I do that right?
Someone said I'm preparing to snooze max, and that is definitely true. But Jasper, always a pleasure having you on, man.
Yeah,
thanks a lot,
guys. Have you on again soon. Thanks so much, everybody. I love you all. You're all my personal friends.
All right, bye.
All right, bye, everybody.